Ahoy mateys, I am so glad to be here with you. I can't believe it's already week 3, but we are going to have fun. You know, when I started thinking about camp this year, one of my goals was to think of more masculine cards. That is a hard job, I'm just saying. But today are a few of those cards. I'm excited to share them with you, and let's get started. So the first card that we have was the Ahoy. I think that is a really fun card, and it would work for so many different occasions. So just simple Ahoy, but I thought I would show you another version or a variation using these same supplies with a few twists. So let me show you the supplies that we are using, and that is card cutout 618 and 623, and then I have also used the rusty seafoam stripes, the rusty red wagon solid. I love these red striped frames. We'll be using that. Sand, and we'll just be using parts of these pieces, and then our new blueberry pie chalky solid. So I love these papers, and I think we're going to have fun making this card. So the first thing I wanted to show you, we're going to do a little different shaped card this time, and you will need it to start with a half sheeted piece of paper, and I recommend using a paper trimmer like this one. I like this little fold-out ruler too. Makes it really easy to trim your 5.5 inch or half sheet. So once you have that trimmed and fold it in half, now we are going to take this card and we are going to cut it from corner, and I am just lining up the fold of the card in the seam down here, or the cut line, and the angle, or this bottom corner. And now I can double check that as I bring it here. And so now we have a card with the front, a fun front opening. So I'm going to go ahead and save this piece. Now it is really easy if you wanted to use the scrap, which I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and tape it in place. So I'm just using my double-sided tape. If I can get it off there. And then I find if I have the card closed, now I can just line this piece up so easy. And now it is just stuck on the back of my card. So a fun little card folding technique you can use with so many different kinds of cards. But today we are going to be using the inker. I have already got some of my pieces cut here. I'll show you. This is the card we're actually creating. So it has a cute little flip and then an open. So I've got the measurements of what you want to use here. So let's set that aside. I've used my red wagon striped frames. I've got that cut out, and I did use the paper trimmer. I don't always, but I did use the paper trimmer to cut this out, and it made it just a little easier and more square as well. And then I've cut this piece of paper of my seafoam rusty stripes, and it is 2 3/4 by 3 13/16, and it is just the companion of this piece of paper, and its dimensions are 7 3/4 by 2 3/4. And once you have that trimmed, then you go ahead and fold it in half. And then I am going to take this piece we talked about earlier, and I make sure I line it up on the bottom. There's a little bit of room at the top still, you can see, between the fold, but that allows it to fold nicely without the bulk. So I'm going to go ahead and tape this in place. And remember, I am lining it up with the bottom, so that way I can fold the top without any bulk there, so it still folds nicely. And then I liked, originally when I made this card, I didn't have this little red frame behind the front, but I like how it separates and just adds a little more definition between the shapes. So again, that one is just a 3 by 4 inch piece, and this is the Rusty Red Wagon Solid. That is such a tongue twister. And I like to set that in place. I'm going to just go ahead and put a couple of pieces of my double-sided tape. I'm going to center it first on the top. And now I can just press and it will be adhered to the red. Now you won't have this little marking of the dimension shown there. And then we are going to, oh, you know what? I skipped a step. You don't want to put the red backing on yet. We want to work a little on the card first. Now, I think it was in week 1 we talked about ripping paper, and I want to rip some more paper here for the sand. And something to keep in mind, if I am making something like this little sand border here, I am going to always want to start with the straight edge of the paper. Now, of course, you could trim the paper also to get your straight edge, and then whatever is in your left hand, when you rip with the right hand, the left hand is going to be the side that gets the white or the edge there. And I will just go ahead and I will do 2 layers. Now this white may be a little more white than you want. Of course, you could just take it and trim it off a little bit as well. And now I like to go ahead and stick these to my page. And it's okay if they overhang a little bit because we're just going to trim them off. So that feels like a pretty good position for the bottom layer. So I'm going to go ahead and just tape that in place. And I am just using double-sided tape for adhering the sand. I'm sticking to everything now. And then I will do the same thing with this additional piece. Now, I didn't put my tape on quite to the top because I do want to tuck my anchor in. And I'm just going to go ahead and position that right along the bottom edge of the card. Then it's very easy to turn your card over, and either with your paper trimmer or paper, just some scissors, I'm just trimming off that excess of the sand. So now I just have a cute little sandy beach here, and I am going to tuck the anchor into it so you can see just how easy that is to just give another little look to your anchor. Now for this one, I actually punched just a tiny hole, and I just used a simple regular school paper punch. It is the 1/8 inch hole, like this one. It's just handy to have on hand. So that's one thing. Or if you have another 1/8 inch, or even if you have the bigger hole, or bigger punch, I would go ahead and use that. And I just thread it in a little bit, and then I have just used regular tape to position that in place. And if it overlaps your card cut a little bit, I've just trimmed it off there. So now I have got my little rope for my anchor, and now I just kind of want to twist it around, and then I tied a knot in the very end as well. Easier said than done, apparently. And I'm just using the baker's twine. I really have had fun with baker's twine lately. Anyway, so now you can just twist it around your anchor, give it a few loops here and there, and then I tucked it in place, and I did adhere the anchor with mounting tape on the upper edge because I just thought it gave it a little more dimension. Then wrap your little rope around however you like, and then I did just use a glue dot and adhere the little knot in place, just so I wanted to keep it looking the way I want it. So now once you have all your pieces glued together, you can simply add your red background as we had earlier. So now you can kind of see, I then added this. Well, it didn't stick obviously. Some of my tape came off, so let me. And we're just going to pretend our anchor is mounted there. And now I'm going to take and I am just going to center the red inside of this frame. And again, I'm just going to use the double-sided mounting tape. But this is such a fun technique and has such a fun look for your cards. So I'm just centering that in there. Just look, I just think that is so fun. And now you're going to take your card, and again, you're just going to use your double-sided tape and stick that in place. We'll have our anchor in tucked in here. And then I added, let hope be your anchor. And I just think that is a fun message. Of course, you could use happy birthday, whatever the sentiment is. But I think let hope be your anchor is great for so many different occasions. So kind of a nice twist. So you have your close, whoops, close and close. I thought also it was fun to add a little of the baker's twine behind, and I literally just kind of twisted it in my fingers, stuck it down, and then I added the tape to it, the mounting tape, and just a little double-sided tape in the middle here, stuck it down, and that's just how it turned out. And I think any way you want to do that is just so, so cute. So I hope you've enjoyed our variation. I think they are both cute cards. I love them both. Now, something else if you wanted to do, you could put a whole piece of paper back here if you didn't like the angle, but that is really such a fun way to do a contrast with the card. So, okay, our next card. Today is our nautical day. And our next card here, and clean up my mess, goodness, is our Lighthouse. Now, our card that was featured in the kit is this lighthouse. And you know, I have loved lighthouses since I was a little girl. We went camping along the Oregon coast, and we stopped at several lighthouses. And I've always been intrigued since then with lighthouses. We lived in the San Francisco Bay Area for a while, a few lighthouses in there, but I just loved the sound of the foghorn. Of course, they don't play it much anymore, but I really like that sound. You know, sometimes life is a little foggy, and sometimes we need that little bit of a light from a lighthouse. So I just really, or we can be that light for someone else. So I thought this was a really fun card. I was asking Lane what he thought I could do for a twist on this card, and he's like, well, I think you should make it landscape, and I think you should have the lighthouse stick off the edge of the paper a little bit. And I'm like, and then cut out the windows. I'm like, well, that might be getting a little too tedious, but I took his suggestion to heart and gave myself the challenge. Sometimes a portrait card is easier to design than a landscape. So we took that challenge. We've used card cutout 624. Card cutout 618, the sentiment sheet that goes with our nautical theme. The little water splash, if you will, card cutout 619. And then I also used our Blackbird spattered paper, and it is a really fun addition to that card. And then another special twist, which I'll show you after, is some little tags made using the Barnwood gift tags. So the first thing I want to show you with this card, I took and I trimmed off the bottom edge of my card here, and then I cut it in half lengthwise. But that gives you such a fun, different twist. You fold your card in half then, right sides together, And of course you could use your bone folder if you want. I also sometimes will just use an embossing tool, a pen, whatever I have handy. It doesn't matter if this lines up exactly, because now we're going to take this outside flap and we're going to fold it over. So now you kind of have a card that has a half of a front cover, if you will. And I am just going to go ahead and use my double-sided tape. But feel free to use a glue stick or whatever to adhere those two pieces together. And then, as Lane said, we are working with a landscape card. And so I wanted to use the water splash to go as a scene behind my lighthouse. So I just went ahead and cut it out, and then I mounted it to the card. And again, I used the double-sided tape, and I just did a couple of good pieces there because I want it to be sturdy enough. And now I'm just going to center on the whole card. Then I'm going to take my rest of my lighthouse pieces, and I'm not going to take the time to do all of that cutting right now, but I'll show you how I pieced it all together. Now I cut out the water, and then I left a little extra edge this time, and I just folded or curled because it just gave a little more dimension to the water. And then I added the little pieces of grass by the lighthouse and just mounted it all on. And I did mount this all on with double-sided tape. No, mounting tape, because it gave a little more dimension. Then when you open it, I added his light shine. And then if you wanted to, which I think you probably will, just any scrap of paper, this was just a piece I had here, just go ahead, but you could use a solid color that's light enough to write on, whatever works for you and fits your card. Now, this is a fun technique to do with flowers, or, I mean, there are just so many possibilities. And then you can just tuck this in under here, add a little anchor, whatever you want to finish embellishing the inside of your card, and then you have room to write your little message. So I thought that was a fun twist. So thanks, Lane. I appreciated that challenge you gave me to turn it into a landscape card. And look, we did go off the edge just as he had asked. So I think that is a fun twist. Such different looking cards. Let me get different looking cards, but using the same pieces. So I think that is really fun to know how to do that. And you can do this with so many different things. So I can't wait to see what you've created. Remember, share what you've created on our Facebook Lasting Impressions and our summer card camp gallery. We want to see what you're doing. So I do have a couple of little twists, as I told you, using the lighthouse. So I am just going to explain them to you. I've got the lighthouse cut out, no other pieces. And then once it was cut out, I took my paper trimmer and I positioned it so I was going to cut this lighthouse in half. And the beauty of that, I will get 2 cards out of one. So I looked at the image, and you could do this like the other card with flowers, whatever you want. It is really a fun technique. So I looked at my design here, and this side has a little bit more, like you might think the middle of the lighthouse is here, and it's close, but when you have this little house next to it, we need to give a little more room for that side, allow that to have that, and then cut so this side still has enough space or design in it that it will make a cute card too. So I literally just stuck my cutout piece in my paper trimmer and just trimmed it in half. I'm going to show you the right half first, and I've just then added the water. I added on, I wanted it to stick out just a little bit on the edge like it's done here. And I wanted the little bit of grass, the color. And then I took the sentiment and I just cut it out separately, cut a hole, and it just kind of dangles there. I think that's really fun, and added my baker's twine. So you can see that's the right side of the lighthouse. Now here is my left side of the lighthouse. Again, it's just a little piece. You can see if I stick them together, I cut off just a little to the left of the little flag on top. I've got my house, I added a little green, and this is just the leftover piece that I had cut off from here. So you can see, and you could have cut off more. I left some of it under the house, not realizing I was going to use that piece again. So, and then I just tucked a little sentiment in here, and then I took a piece of the red paper. Let's see. I just cut a strip. I had a little longer strip originally to do this. I fold it in half. Then I could trim it if I needed, but I mount a little bit of double-sided tape, and then I just put it on the edge of the card. And this piece actually is just fine. You can pretend that was up here. And then I just use the double-sided tape. Then I can thread my little baker's twine, jute, whatever I want through that hole to hang my tag from. Or, as we have talked before, this is a great foundation for a whole card. So I hope you've enjoyed today. Ahoy, mateys! We will see you tomorrow. Happy camping!